Now I'm here. A little tired, but that's how it goes. Okay, so I'm going to be reading a passage of a book that I found the other day. This is called A Sound of Crying, a Ghost Story. So it looks a little sad, and if it starts to get super sad, we'll stop reading it. But I found it, and I'm sure no one's ever read it before. Well, I'm sure someone's read it before, but I've never read it before. Anyways, the back says, "What a sinister place to live," Polly exclaims the very first moment she sees her cousin's house. "I'll bet it's haunted." "It is not," Frederick snaps back, "and there's no such thing as ghost." But before long, even Frederick begins to wonder. As for Polly, she must find out the truth about the lonely 19th century girl who comes alive each night in Polly's frightening dreams. Okay, so it sounds kind of crazy. Let's get started on the first chapter. We're going to do a chapter a day. Ready? Yay! Welcome to Random Books with Gnomes. So, this book was from 1970. First chapter is called The Young Scientist. Oh, and the book pages have already fallen open. Here we go. Oh dear. Frederick sliced the top of his boiled egg and gazed absently into its depths. He couldn't see the future there, but he didn't need to. He knew very well enough that for the next few weeks, his peaceful vacation would be completely disrupted. Why on earth had his aunt fallen ill just now? He didn't want to spend the summer with a gang of infants underfoot. True, Polly was 12, only a year younger than himself, but she was a girl. Although that hadn't mattered 5 years ago, he thought it would now. "Frederick, is there something the matter with that egg?" He came to life at his mother's voice, stirring the yolk and sniffing. "It seems to smell quite normal. Why have you cooked me a doubtful one?" "Don't be silly, of course not. I just wondered why you weren't eating it. You'll miss the bus if you don't hurry." He glanced at his watch and resigningly started to bolt the egg. It was better than nothing. His mother and Miss Richards had been too busy getting bedrooms ready to cook a real lunch. His cousins should have given more warning of their coming, he thought crossly, and now he was expected to waste an afternoon going into town to meet their train. Of course, he had to admit that it wouldn't be entirely wasted. He'd run out of hydraulic acid and ammonia, and had been waiting until his mother wanted some town shopping done. But this was just as good a pretext for getting his fares paid. The newsstand might have the latest Young Scientist as well. He wondered if he would recognize his cousins. Last time he saw them, Michael and Jennifer had been toddlers, and the youngest hadn't even been born. "Have you got a crib for Hugh?" he asked, pushing back his chair. "Hardly. He's 5. "Good heavens, I suppose he is." On the bus he worked out that Michael and Jennifer must be 9 and 8 respectively. Relieved at having it straight, he opened the book he had brought with him and found his place. It was very interesting, all about crystals, but somehow he found he couldn't concentrate. It wasn't because he was on a bus. He always rode on the bus from home to school. He stopped trying and let his thoughts wander idly. Science lessons at school, talking to Miss Bates afterwards, the neat red 10s of his homework. But then there was the other side of it, the idiots who jeered at him for working so hard and taking it so seriously. He would never cook his lab results to make them more satisfactory, and as for fooling around during practical classes, that was unthinkable. He was always too busy. His friends found him hard to understand, and his enemies didn't try. Yes, it was really much better during vacations, when he could devote himself exclusively to chemistry. He had planned so many things to do, books to read, experiments to try, and now everything would have to wait. "Are we nearly there?" asked Jennifer with a yawn. "Wait a minute," said Michael from his position of concentrated attention by the window. "There's one due. Yes, 105 miles. 5 miles to go," said Polly. When they had realized they could read the distance traveled from numbers posted by the tracks, she discovered from the guard that it was 110 miles to their destination. After that, they kept an exact watch on the progress of their journey. Time to get the luggage down. She stood on the seat and reached for the suitcases. 5 miles is a lot, said Jennifer doubtfully. Not on a train, said Polly. Really? Jennifer became excited and jumped up beside her. No, I'll get them, said Polly. You might stumble. You can pick up all the candy wrappers and things. We can't leave it looking like this. They had an empty compartment and had rather spread themselves. The journey had been fun. Polly almost wished it didn't have to end. She was excited about seeing Frederick again, but also slightly nervous. She wondered if he remembered his visit to them when he was 7, with as much pleasure as she did. She had felt rather guilty at her delight 2 days ago. When their father had told them that they were to come here, although he and the doctor had both been assuring them that they needn't worry about their mother. It didn't seem right to be miserable. Another train hurtled past the window and Michael flinched back. Why are you frightened? Asked Hugh from the opposite seat. It can't get us in here. I'm not. It just makes me jump, said Michael defensively. It doesn't make me jump. Hugh, help me with the candy wrappers, ordered Polly. He crawled obediently around the floor, but asked, Why doesn't Michael help too? It's his turn for the window. So was it mine? You're too small to watch the mileposts, said Jennifer. 109, said Michael, and he began to chant in time with the rhythm of the train. 109, 109, 109. We're nearly there, Jennifer joined in, cramming a sticky handful of papers into one of the ashtrays. Hey, we're slowing down! There's the station! We're nearly there! We're nearly there! Polly kicked some crumbs under the seat. Here, Michael, you carry this, and Jennifer, bring the coats. What about me? Said Hugh. You bring number 3. Suppose Frederick isn't here, said Michael anxiously as they got out. Shall I run up and down looking for him? Suggested Jennifer. No, stay with me, said Polly. You wouldn't recognize him anyway. I think that's him over there. Frederick spotted a string of unattended children, who must be his cousins, and went towards them, noticing how untidy they looked. Polly had grown, but her small bony face hadn't changed much. Frederick? I almost wouldn't have known you. You didn't used to wear specs. They make you look different. Her voice was as he remembered it too, clear and confident. I've worn glasses for years, he said rather crossly, and added, A good thing I knew you. Yes, I expect you can guess which is which of these, Michael, Jennifer, Hugh. He nodded to them. The 2 older ones were alike, thin and brown-eyed. Hugh had a fringe growing into his eyes and clutched a battered teddy bear. Frederick thought he looked like a poster for an orphanage. The thumb that he removed from his mouth in order to say hello was an oasis of pink and on his dirty hand. Frederick took one of the suitcases and led them out of the station. I've just got to go a couple of shops. You can wait for me by the bus stop. Oh, we'll come too, said Polly. I feel like a little walk. I'm only going across the road, he said, but found that they followed him all the same. There will be a walk when we get off the bus, he added. Good, said Polly. When he made his purchases, Jennifer chirped in astonishment. Hydrochloric acid? Have you got a chemistry set? Asked Michael. Yes, he said shortly. Gosh, you are lucky, said Polly. There you are, young man, said Mr. Bage, handing him the neatly sealed package, and added as usual, Look, don't blow yourself up. Jennifer giggled, and Frederick concealed his irritation with difficulty. Are you interested in chemistry, then? He asked Polly as they went out. Well, I don't like learning it, but mixing things together must be fun. Can we try it? Asked Michael. Experimenting is dangerous without sufficient knowledge, said Frederick, and that seemed too close the subject. Polly was afraid this remark applied to her as well as the younger ones. She felt dejected at having said the wrong thing. It seemed all too easy to do this with a new cross Frederick. She wished she had pretended to be a genius at science, but then he would have probably seen through her quickly. He looked dreadfully clever with the glasses and the book he was carrying. Whose title she had managed to glimpse, an introduction of crystallography. She was not surprised when the magazine he bought was called The Young Scientist. "Is that for your father?" asked Jennifer. "Of course not," rebuked Polly quickly. "It's for himself." Frederick thought it would have been better if she had told Jennifer to mind her own business. They recrossed the road, and Hugh, lagging behind, narrowly escaped being run over. Nobody talked much on the bus. Polly kept giving Frederick furtive sidelong glances, trying to find an echo of the impish companion he had been 5 years ago. She wished he would take his glasses off for a moment and let her see his face as if she remembered lurked beneath, but she couldn't bring herself to the point of asking him. The promised walk was down a winding country road. "How lonely is it?" said Polly with pleasure. "Do you get cut off by the snow in winter?" "We haven't been yet. I suppose in a bad winter it could happen. It is lonely, though. Our nearest neighbors are half a mile away, that village where we got off the bus." "So do you keep a stock of canned food, in case?" "Mother might," he said vaguely. "And candles, in case the electricity failed?" continued Polly. "And a big pile of logs?" "Why not coal?" he asked snappingly. "All right then, coal. You'd have to take a path to the coal shed. Oh, you are lucky. We'll never be snowed in where we live." Frederick couldn't see that this was a matter for regret. "I'm sure we've come more than a half mile since we've got off the bus," said Jennifer plaintively. "You see those pine trees at the bend? The gate is there," said Frederick. "Oh, do you live in a wood?" Jennifer cheered up. "It's a very small wood," warned Frederick. "Nice, even so," said Polly, and added half to herself, "If you ran out of coal, you could cut down a tree." Once they were through the gate, the wood didn't seem small to her. The trees grew too thickly for her to see how far they stretched, and the winding drive was shadowed and dimmed. It was very pleasant after the hot, dusty road. "There's a mysterious kind of smell," she said, sniffing deeply. Frederick frowned and sniffed also. Perfectly ordinary smell of pine trees. "And of mystery," said Polly. "Lovely." Then they rounded another bend into sunlight and stopped to stare. Against a background of great pines, the gray stone house stood dark and forbiddingly plain. In front of it, the drive widened into a gravel country yard, and on the far side of the ground dropped away to a sheet of still water, black with reflections of the trees that hemmed the further rim. Just where they stood, a little leaf-smothered stream ran under the drive and trickled with scarcely a sound into the lake. "Oh, what a sinister place to live," breathed Polly. "I bet it's haunted." Hugh's eyes widened. Michael and Jennifer clasped hands and shrank towards her. "It most certainly is not," said Frederick, extremely annoyed. His momentary pride in the scene was shattered. "How do you know?" asked Jennifer. "Because there's no such thing as ghosts," he snapped. "There's one in our attic at home," said Michael. "Captain," nodded Jennifer. "He's a little old man with a stick. We hear him tapping." Frederick rubbed his nose, exasperated. He never knew how to talk to young children. He remembered there had been a terrible uproar some years ago when he had told a 5-year-old that there was no Santa Claus. But surely Michael, at least, was too old for this kind of nonsense. "Who told you about him?" he asked finally. "Never mind, Captain, now," said Polly hastily. But too late. Michael had already replied. Polly did. It was her turn to feel cross. Things like Captain were spoilt if told to the wrong kind of person Frederick had become. If told to the kind of person Frederick had become. The front door opened and a voice called, "Frederick, why don't you bring your cousins inside?" Polly's vague, pleasant memory of an aunt like a storybook queen vanished when she saw Aunt Sylvia. She was alarmingly elegant, and her face looked arranged, thought Polly. Must take ages. And she compared it with her mother's kind, tired one, which already had wrinkles. "Hello, Auntie," she said, dumping her suitcase on the hall floor and expecting to be kissed. Instead, there was a tinkling music box laugh. "Oh dear, I don't think I can be an auntie. I don't feel a little bit like one. You children had better call me Aunt Sylvia. Now, let me all look at you. Dear, dear, it must have been a tiring journey. Frederick, will you show upstairs, and you'll want to tidy up and wash up before supper." Polly supposed they did look rather scruffy, though it hadn't occurred to her before she felt slightly downcast, but cheered up when she saw her room. It was on the second floor, right under the eaves, where its own narrow flight of stairs. "A garret," she said, but seeing Frederick's expression amended. "A very luxurious garret." Frederick unsmilingly pushed his glasses farther up his nose and clacked away down the stairs. Polly sat on her bed and sighed. It wasn't a bit nice anymore. Probably they were going to have a horrible time here. Then she looked around her. It was really very garrety if you concentrated on the sloping ceiling and dormer window and ignored things like the bedside rug and dressing table, and she felt, as when she had first seen the house, a tingling thrill of excitement. When Uncle Clementine came home, he shook each of their hands vigorously and hoped they would enjoy their visit. "Frederick will do his best to entertain you, but you mustn't expect too much of him," he said with a smile to Polly, who felt like replying that she had already realized that. "He's not very used to girls." The three younger ones were in bed early. Michael and Jennifer voiced their indignation privately to Polly. "Why should you stay up later?" "Because I'm older." "It's not our bedtime yet. We won't be able to go to sleep. You can read for a bit." "We'd rather you tell us a story." "Yes, well, I can't, because I shall be busy downstairs." "Hey," hissed Michael suddenly. "Was Frederick always like this?" "You told us he was nice," accused Jennifer. "He changed," said Polly glumly. "I don't like him," said Jennifer. Downstairs, Polly found Frederick reading his magazine and felt awed and irritated. Could he really like that kind of thing? "There's an interesting article here, Dad," he said, and continued in some detail. After a while, Aunt Sylvia broke in. "You must get your hair cut soon, Frederick, and you might as well take Hugh with you." She flashed a smile at Polly. "I don't suppose your mother's been up to seeing that kind of thing lately." "I suppose not," said Polly, thinking that Hugh's opinion about a haircut, or at any rate hers, could at least have been asked first. "On my own?" asked Frederick rather blankly. "Polly can go with you. You can show her around. It will make a nice little trip for you both." "Around what?" muttered Frederick to himself. "I would like to have a look at that article, if I may," said his father, and he felt pleased. "Do you believe in ghosts, Dad?" he suddenly asked. Polly looked up. Uncle Clementine smiled. "Which ghosts?" "Well, just ghosts," said Frederick, nonplussed. "You don't have a particular one in mind?" A small hiccup of laughter escaped Polly. "How could I when they don't exist?" "You made up your mind already, have you?" "Well, do they?" Frederick was very pink, and Polly began to feel a little sorry for him. "It's a difficult question, son," said his father kindly. "I can't say I believe in any ghost I've ever heard of, that's to say. I wouldn't be afraid to go inside Borley Rectory or any of the other famous haunts, but there is certainly quite a weight of evidence in favor of the existence of psychic phenomena." Polly got left behind here. When she had succeeded in unraveling his meaning to herself, she sat feeling smugly victorious and not looking at Frederick, who said no more. Okay, that was super long. That was the first chapter of A Sound of Crying, a ghost story by Rodie Sudbery. Look at that. Okay, so I feel like I stumble a bit when I read, but it's only going to get better, and I hope you're around to enjoy the second chapter of this cool book with me tomorrow. All right, bye!